Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the first ever virtual meeting of the Audit and Accountability Committee for the Columbus City Schools Board of Education. My name is James Ragland, and I'm here with co-chair Ms. Carol Beckerly, as well as Madam Auditor Carolyn Smith. Madam Auditor, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Chair Ragland.
Here.
Vice Chair Beckerly.
Here.
Mr. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Vajan. Ms. Adair.
Here.
Mr. Jordan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. The last meeting of the Audit and Accountability Committee were sent to you in a previous email. I want to assure that all of the committee members got those meeting minutes. And once we have reviewed them today, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last Audit and Accountability Committee meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Some head
Yes.
nods. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the last Audit and Accountability Committee meeting. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Madam Auditor, I will turn the direction of the meeting over to you. Thank you.
There are one adjustment that I'm recommending that we make to the agenda. Instead of having the Office of Internal Audit Reports be the second item, I am recommending that we have the external audit by independent accountants, which will consist of an update of the WCBE financial audit, followed by an update of the Office of Inspector General's report on WCBE. I'm proposing that those items be moved from number 5 to number 2.
Certainly, I would like to adjust today's meeting agenda to move item number 5 to number 2, and then the remainder of the meeting will follow in subsequent order. I will entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that we change the agenda to reflect item number 5 being moved to item number 2. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Madam Auditor.
Okay, and the first item on the agenda was committee operations, but there's no reports that need to be prepared at this point in time, so that will move us to a report from the external auditors. So that will be given by Mr. Mike Haskins with, I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay.
Mr. Haskins.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mike Haskins, principal with the firm of Hemphill, Wright and Associates. And I'd like to just go through with you the audit report of WCBE for the year ended June 30, 2019. Hopefully you do have a copy of that report before you. Page 1 is the independent auditor's report, which in this case is an unmodified opinion, which means we've taken no exceptions to the financial statements as of June 30, 2019. Page 3 is the statement of financial position. This would be if you took a snapshot of the organization at June 30, 2019. This is what you look like, or WCBE looked like at that point in time. They had total assets of approximately $270,000, total liabilities was about 162,000. And then their net assets or net worth was about 108,000. Page 4 is the statement of activities for the year ended June 30, 2019. They had total revenue and support of about $2.2 million. The total expenditures was about $2 million. And then the change in net assets was about 209,000. Then there was a prior period, the fraud that was committed by a prior WCB manager, and we received a statement from NPR that showed the total amount that was due to them was $859,338. But of that, $657,410 related to years prior to 18. So therefore, the years prior to FY 2019, we had to make the prior period adjustment of $657,410. And then the net assets from the prior year was about $556,000. And then when you take the sum of those three numbers, you get the $108,000 end of year net assets. And as you're well aware, during the year, the school board transferred in $870,000 to help pay for that the NPR statement of the $859,000 in total. Page 5 is the statement of cash flows. It shows your sources and uses of cash during the year. And the cash position went down from the prior year by $574,000. And then, so therefore you were left with end of year cash of about $165,000. Page 6 is the statement of functional expenditures. It shows the programs, 3 programs, and then the administrative in general across the top of the page. And then down the left side of the page is the natural expense category. Then the remainder of the report are the footnotes to the financial statements. These just enhance the reader's understanding of the financials and give some more details on some of the numbers that were presented in the financial statements. And like I said, the one on page 9, that under note 1, that prior period adjustment, it explains there what that the $657,410 of prior period adjustment relates to, as I've explained. So that gives you a brief synopsis of the report, unless you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from committee members regarding any of the findings of the report?
Yes, Chairman, I do have a question.
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Mike, thank you for the report. Just curious as to, was consideration given to a going concern opinion or emphasis of a matter paragraph given the fraud that took place?
We considered it. However, I mean, if you look at the net assets, I mean, you're still in a positive situation. You're not in a deficit situation, which obviously if you're in a deficit, that would have caused the going concern. But because of that transfer in by the school or by the treasurer's office to the station of $870,000, obviously that kept you from being a going concern.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Piggybacking on the previous question, do we think that that net balance is an indicator of stability going forward? Or
I don't know. I mean, we don't know what the financial statements are going to look like for going forward. I mean, the last time we saw them was June 30th of 2019.
2019, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're
No opinion on that.
well into this fiscal year, so, which I have no idea what those numbers look like. I assume you guys have probably looked at possibly some financial statements coming from them right now.
Certainly, and to Co-Chair Beckerly's point, I think we do have a working group that is looking at the future of the station, and those types of items will be presented to the board in a formal fashion during our June board meeting. And so one of the things that we may want to do, Madam Co-Chair, is ask for those updated financial numbers based off what we found here today to be included in the report to the board. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to have that information presented to us as a part of a comprehensive presentation about what the future of the station is going to look like.
Sounds good.
Mike, this is Tim Grant. Was there any adjustments made for any potential paybacks that had to be to CBB? I know that was one of the questions that came up.
No, I mean, everything was we sent out confirmations to NPR as well as some of the other big payables, and they all came back that they had been paid. So NPR was totally paid back as of June 30. So there was no outstanding invoices at that time.
Well, no, I was speaking more towards the grant that CPB provides to the radio station. When that some of that had to be paid.
Well, they had not completed their audits at the point in time, because I actually met with one of the individuals that was doing their audit, and they were looking at more than just that fiscal year that we were auditing, and their report was not done by the time we issued and had to submit to them. As you're well aware, we had to submit the audit report by November 30th. We can get a 30-day extension, which obviously this year we had to get, and submit the audit report into their website.
So your audit report had already been submitted.
Oh yeah. They weren't even done when we submitted. I think it was in January when we submitted. We had actually they gave us 45 days.
Okay.
Because it fell around Christmas time, obviously. But they only gave us 30, so they gave us 45 days to complete it, and we had to submit it by January 15th.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions from the committee members? Madam Auditor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haskins, and
Thank you.
closely with Mr. Varner and the team over at WCBE. So thank you all for that great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to stay on, or can I leave? Or
you can certainly leave, but if you wanted to just kind of stay on, that's up to you. But thank you for your time, and if you want to, call it a day, then great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll listen to the presentation by CPB is next, you say?
Yes.
Okay, I'll listen to their presentation, then I'll leave.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have the report, high-level report of the Office of Inspector General and the report that they issued regarding WCBE. Because Kevin Sankowski from the Office of Internal Audit had also did some work on WCBE regarding the for him to give you an overview of a brief overview of our work, and then the work that the follow Mr. Zankowski, and just provide more information on the response in relation to this audit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Zankowski.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah, as Carolyn mentioned, I'm going to give you just kind of a short ramp up to the OIG's audit and kind of how we got to where we got to, and then I'll turn it over to Scott and allow him to talk about the management responses and the like. So if you recall, back in January of 2019, we were notified of a significant outstanding debt related to WCBE and payments due to NPR. Based on that information, we initiated a special review of some of the operations there at WCBE, and then that led to an actual report that we produced, presented to the Audit and Accountability Committee last June, which accepted that report. And obviously, the big item in that report was related to the outstanding debt Then we also made some other management recommendations related to the operations of WCBE. So that was our work. As we were doing our work and as some of the media reports were made, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting became aware of the issues involving the outstanding debt at NPR or with NPR. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting obviously is a federal agency. They provide some grant funding to WCBE for some of its operations and for some of its programming. We were in contact with the Office of the Inspector General for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, which is kind of their audit arm or their function within their agency that does program-related audits for grants that they provide or other things that they do related to their program compliance. So we were contacted by the Office of the Inspector General for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. Kind of gave them a thumbnail of what it was they were doing. They showed interest in what it is we were doing, waited until we were done, and then they were going to decide whether or not to initiate their own audit of the grant that they provide to WCBE. They did decide to initiate an audit of their own. Their audit was focused more on grant compliance, the money that they provide to WCB and the regulations or the requirements that go along with that money that's provided. So their focus and their scope was clearly a little different than what ours was, focusing on that grant compliance. Our involvement, as far as our being the district or OIA, our involvement in the OIG's engagement was really just to provide information to them relative to what it is we did in our special review, mainly talking to them about the scope of what it is we did and the results of what it is we found. So that was kind of our involvement. And then towards the end, we did provide some suggestions to Mr. Varner to relative to the responses that were provided to the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, OIG, in response to their audit report. Just some general suggestions relative to making that response in the corrective action plan. So that's the quick ramp up. Unless there's any specific questions related to that information, I'll to Scott to let him speak to the actual audit process involving the OIG's office.
Mr. Berner, before you start, I'd just like to add that we have sent copies of both the Office of Inspector General's report and the WCBE financial audit to all committee members. And it was also our plan to work with Mr. Varner to see where the best placement of these documents on the CCS website would be. So anyone who was listening to this meeting, you will be able to have access to these reports. We'll just need to nail down where that access is going to be. So thank you.
And thank you, Auditor Smith, Chairman Ragland, and members of the committee. Just on that specific point, we will be working to make sure copies of those materials are available on the WCBE website, the spot where we have all of the elements of our Corporation for Public Broadcasting reports online. So thank you, committee. I think that when the special review was shared with this committee several months ago, I had an opportunity to kind of put the station's current situation in perspective. As many of you know, for more than 65 years since the station first started broadcasting back in 1956, it has held what I would say is a very unique and somewhat isolated position within our district. It's still very rare for a public K-12 school district to have a radio station. When you look at the station staff, there's only one member of that staff, the secretary. All other members of the staff hold classifications and positions that are not seen anywhere else in our district. They work hours that are outside of the normal school day, the normal school year. And really for the past decade and a half, since 2001, when the Board of Education chose to cut direct general fund investment to the station, they have acted independently in many ways. receiving no direct general fund, and instead relying solely on fundraising, underwriting, which is their form of advertising, and grants such as that we get from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I share all that not to make an excuse, because what was revealed as part of the special review by our Office of Internal Audit, as well as the information that was brought to light as part of this work by the Office of the Inspector General, none of that is excusable, but I think it gives context to an environment at the station that I believe contributed to that increased risk for neglectful and what we found to be fraudulent activity by that one employee, and that activity going unnoticed for an extended period of time. I appreciate that in the report by the Inspector General, they noted that that many of these findings were rooted in that one employee's failure to provide accurate information. And I know this committee often talks about a segregation of duties. I say the challenge here was also a segregation of information, that it's unclear whether the former station manager didn't know or chose not to share, purposely withheld information from others that contributed to some of the findings. And again, I appreciate that during the audit by the Office of Inspector General, the team that was here, the individual from the Inspector General's office, didn't simply point out mistakes, but she worked directly with myself, with members of Horrick's team, with actual several members of the staff at the radio station, explaining the challenges and the findings, and then actually pointing to best practices, those things that we could do immediately to get back into compliance. So I really appreciated the work of the Office of Inspector General to do that. One more piece of context I will share. The dollars that we receive from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting total about $125,000, $126,000 each year. That would represent covering about 7% of the total budget for the station. And it represents probably one of the smaller percentages of revenue. And I fear that for far too often, the former station manager, knowing that it was the smallest percentage of revenue, gave it probably the smallest attention. And that's unfortunate, because our association with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting represents far more than just the dollars we receive, and our need to be compliant with their regulations represent far more. And I think what this report did was give us the needed information to determine how best, what resources would best be needed in terms of staff, in terms of time, to best manage these this specific amount. I don't know if it's necessary for me to go further into how the employee, the former employee, was held accountable both professionally and criminally for these actions. Instead, again, I appreciate that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in this audit did recognize the multiple action steps that have already been taken or are put in place to make sure that we reduce the risk in the future. As you read through the report, you recognize that there are now changes in how invoices are received and accounted for. We have eliminated what was an unknown petty cash fund at the station. We've improved monitoring of the underwriting accounts, as well as appreciation for membership. Updates to the data for our annual financial reports and the non-federal financial support report that our auditor, Mr. Haskins, talked about. And then how we have better improved our reporting compliance at the station and online. So with that, I'll close by saying that I think what this report did most for us was really give us greater insight as we look to the future of the station about the types of changes that are going to be necessary, the kinds of actions that we need to put in place to reduce risk in the future, and really ensure that WCBE is meeting the standards of accountability, of transparency, of stewardship that have really been set by the superintendent and this Board of Education. So we're happy to answer any questions specific to the work done by the Office of Inspector General.
Thank you, Mr. Varner. We appreciate how thorough that report was, and also that you articulated the safeguards that we already have put in place to ensure that we are moving forward from this. Obviously, this was a huge black eye for us. We wanted to make certain that we demonstrated moving forward the spirit of excellence that is permeating through every other aspect of this district. And kudos to you and your team in working through this very diligently. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you in June about what the next phase of life is going to look like for WCBE. With that, are there other questions or comments from any other committee members? Madam Auditor?
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Varner, Mr. Zankowski, for that overview, and Mr. Haskins for sticking around and getting that update. As Mr. Varner said, there will be a copy of both of those reports will be on WCBE's website. Next, we'll go back to the printed agenda, and we'll go back to item number 2, which is the Office of Internal Audit. As you can see on the agenda, we don't have any reports that we're requesting approval for release at this meeting. So the next item will be a overview of a memo that I released regarding buildings and grounds and inventory and equipment audit that we had planned to do, but are postponing right now. And that will be presented by Mr. Kevin O'Connor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our annual audit plan included an audit of the building and ground equipment and inventory, specifically the tools and supplies that reside in buildings and grounds. So basically, we had identified some audit risk, established some audit objectives, and then began our audit work. And as we did our work, we start with interviews, and once those interviews concluded, significant internal control deficiencies. One, there was no physical count of the tools or supplies in quite some time. And the other one was only 10 to 20% of the tool equipment and supply inventory are included in the master inventory database. Those percentages came from custodian of that database. So based on those results, we came up with a couple of audit conclusions. We didn't really see a lot of value or additional benefits we could provide to management by going ahead and doing that work with those significant internal controls not in place. And we saw a willingness of management to make corrections while we were on site, while we were interviewing them. They were already making corrections and adjustments to their internal control environment. For instance, they were locking all the supplies up in cages. That was restricted access, whereas before we started the audit, we could come and go through the warehouse in and out. Now that was shut down, and you had to go with a building and ground employee if you wanted to go in there. So that was very good. They'd been working on some procedures, and basically the lack of the process maturity really prohibited us from being able to perform audit tests that would provide additional benefits to management. We had good discussion with management about all the issues, and we felt it would be a better use of everyone's time if we moved that audit, pushed that back into fiscal year 21, and actually about this time next year, go in and see where management stands with especially the two significant, the physical count and recording that stuff in the master inventory database. So any questions from the committee on any of that?
Kevin, what kind of dollar threshold are we talking about in terms of equipment and supplies? I mean, how much do they spend a year, and any estimate what that dollar threshold might look at if you captured it all?
I don't have that with me, but I can definitely get you that number. Any other questions?
Kevin, was there, sorry, this is Greg. Were there plans for the management to begin a physical inventory of the items?
When we were meeting with them, they were really asking for our assistance on how best to do that,
Okay.
to set that process up. So we want to be careful as auditors to not help them design it and then come in a year and audit it. So we're trying to give them some other school districts what they might be doing and things like that.
Do they have the technology to be able to do a perpetual inventory by adding in purchases and items that are being used to take out? Is the technology there?
They feel it is.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, Madam Auditor, I guess I would give the thought that if in the best interest of the district is to have Kevin give them some answers to the test and have another one of your team members independently assess that process, I might make that recommendation. If it moves along, I certainly think that would be in the spirit of independence and still be objective within your office.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. We were talking about how we walk that fine line between audit and keeping our independence, and we've given that some thought, and I agree wholeheartedly. So, Mr. O'Connor, you have another assignment.
Very good. Always looking for that.
No, because there are plenty of others who I can assign to actually do the audit when we come to that.
Good. Well thought out. Thank you.
And I think that's a win-win for everybody. Yes.
That was just what I was going to say. I really like the win-win for everybody and the idea that, it's all about improving our overall process, and the balance there, I really want to compliment you on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. The next item is update on the Office of Internal Audit's 2020 Annual Audit Plan and Risk Assessment. Like every organization out there, the impact of COVID-19 has really impacted, our audit plan. Some of the things, we're still moving forward in this environment. Priorities of our peers and our co-workers are on delivering academic services, not answering auditors' questions. So we are really trying to be a help to administration as far as sharing, okay, we know that we can't do business as usual. We can be flexible, and also making sure that, that there are different controls in place, as we are distributing Chromebooks to our students, as we are now doing meal sites in almost not quite a congregate setting, but in a fashion that's different than what we are used to and what all of our controls are set up to accommodate. So we have been flexible, trying to come up with different alternatives to how to put in controls, with also not getting in the way of having services be delivered as best we can to our students. So with that said, there's going to be definitely an impact to our 2020 work plan, and there's going to be a definite impact to our 2021 work plan. With 2020, a big part of what we had planned to do, and we tried to do it towards the end of the year to not get in the way of, testing and other things that are going on in the schools, are I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I see someone trying to join us. Our school audits, where we were actually in the buildings, doing different things. Well, that's just not going to be possible for us to do. So we are working, trying to see, what we can do that's going to be of value. We are trying to be flexible and adjustable in what we are doing. We're attending a lot of different seminars, and as we're learning good information, we're passing this on to hopefully the appropriate, person that can benefit from that type of information. As far as 2021, later on, you'll be hearing about a curriculum audit. It was very thorough look at a lot of the operations on the academic side. There are some impact to the operational side. So as that information is released, we're going to be seeing, how that's going to impact our 2021 work plan. There's also a review of our transportation operations from the Council of Great City Schools. So once again, as that type of information is released, we don't want to duplicate what anyone else is doing. We want to take what they have done and see how we can help the district and move those recommendations forward as internal audit. So I just wanted, the committee to know and the listening audience to know, that, even though things are changing, we're still seeing how we can safeguard the assets of the district, help mitigate and identify risk, help mitigate those risks. We're having to do it differently. We're having to think outside the box, but we are doing it and we are available. And hopefully for my colleagues who are also on this call and listening, feel free to reach out to me and my staff to help us with any of those type of control questions that you might have. You don't have to go through this alone and trying to figure out what do we have to be concerned about when the CARES money does get released. Access, because we're asking those same questions. Yeah. So I just wanted to, I'll stop talking now and answer any questions that anyone might have.
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question, but I do want to say, Auditor Smith, that you and your team, especially during this time, are very important components of the response to COVID-19. And I want to make sure, and I said this in a past meeting, that we're utilizing your team in a very strategic, proactive way to, assist us, like you said, identifying risks and making sure that we are moving forward in the best way possible. I think that we are still underutilizing the wonderful talent and skills that your team has. And so I want to make sure that your full team, as well as the rest of the administrative staff, understands that, at least me personally, and I'm sure that Chair Ragland and Co-Chair Beckerly will chime in, really, really want you guys to work more collaboratively together. So I'm excited that Kevin's going to help in a more proactive fashion on. I would like to see that kind of thing going forward. And it's completely understandable that your entire plan got messed up because of what happened. And that's okay. And your work is still, it's probably more valuable now than ever. And so don't worry about that. Don't worry about your plan being adjusted, because the work you're doing is very important for all of our kids and their education. So I just want to say that to you, because I think you guys are doing a great job. Moving forward, I just want to make sure that you understand how valuable I see you and your team. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Madam President, and I will echo everything that you said there. And with specificity, the one area that I do feel we are going to continue to work with the administration on. You mentioned, Madam Auditor, both the Phi Delta Kappa curriculum audit as well as the Council of Great City Schools transportation audit. And I believe that there's one other maybe that's out there through another independent source, I believe, concerning HR. Don't quote me on that. But
yes, Board Member Ragland, this is Talisa. Yeah, there is an HR audit that was conducted by Council of Great City Schools. That one is actually completed. It's complete. We're waiting for them to send us that. And I've talked to Internal Auditor Smith about that one as well. So you're correct. So it is 3. I'm not sure the progress of where transportation is, but the HR and those 2 are complete.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I appreciate that. I didn't want to speak out of turn, but I am glad that you were able there to pick up the pieces. And some of the things that we have discussed in this committee and in a broader context in the past is making sure, to Madam President's point, that the Office of Internal Audit continues to be used in the function of some of those independent audits as well. And we've talked about what that looks like. And I think that between Madam Superintendent and Ms. Carolyn, that the discussion will continue about how we more appropriately utilize the Office of Internal Audit, even when we are bringing in outside sources to conduct some of the audits that the superintendent indeed mandates. And so that type of cooperation between the direct reports is something that we have articulated for quite some time, that we would like to see as a stronger representation of the leadership of this new board. And thank you, President Adair, for leading this effort the entire time. And so I'm glad to see that this work is continuing. I'm glad to see that it is being strengthened by both Dr. Dixon as well as Auditor Smith. Madam Co-Chair, I see you chomping at the bit. Please, some insight.
I concur entirely with what everyone else has said so far. I think that what's really exciting to me is that as we're doing new things in real time, such as, excuse me for a minute, as we're doing new things in real time, like distributing Chromebooks, distributing meals. There's going to be all kinds of things going forward, deciding who gets hotspots and who doesn't. Whatever these processes are that we're making up in real time, I don't want to say on the fly, but kind of on the fly, involving our audit team up front to help establish the controls at the outset is a very proactive opportunity. And I'm excited to hear about the information technology report later in this meeting. But I think going forward, calling them in as we're doing these things to brainstorm, how do we set up these controls? How can we have the process regulated and keeping track and all of that? It's a real opportunity for everyone to be working together. And I'm excited about that. Thank you.
And thank you. That collaboration is definitely happening. I have been attending the superintendent's cabinet meetings, which I previously was not attending, and we've also have a representation on the pandemic response team meetings, and just for the most part, all of the meetings that are going on in different parts of the organization. If I can't attend, personally, one of my staff attends, and then at daily, we have a meeting to update each other and to kind of brainstorm as far as, okay, this is going on. How can we best, what's the best way or the best advice that we can offer to the district as we move forward? Because we're all, moving as fast as we can to try to make sure that our students have the best chance of finishing the year strong. So it's a team effort for sure.
And being involved, getting your office involved at the outset can only strengthen our processes and our process. And that's really exciting.
Agreed. Okay, if there's no other questions on that, I'm going to share my screen here and go over the OIA dashboard. Just bear with me. Okay, hopefully you are all seeing, unfortunately it's on page 5 instead of page 1. Okay. And this is the dashboard that I go over whenever the audit committee meets. I just kind of tried to have it be more uniform with the branding that the district is going with. So that's the only change that you'll see. So the first high-level executive summary, I won't spend too much time on it. I will just say right now, you will see that we are currently still planning to hit all of our engagements. We'll have a much better feel during this next or what we're going to be able to complete as far as the school audits. In the past, we have always worked with the high schools, and we have tried to not be out there around graduation. This year, we're working with middle schools, but then we also have the situation with the COVID-19. So we are being flexible, and if we have to come back and report, some alterations to this last few months, I will keep the committee updated. Has not been started. Has a report been issued? Are we in the planning phase? So that's what these next few pages show for each of the engagements. Just a different way of showing kind of the not started it. If it's a solid green, or I guess it's more of a teal, that indicates that it's completed. And if it's a yellow, that indicates that it started but not completed. I just know different people digest information in different ways. So that's why I give you all these options. We have no new additions or new deletions since the January meeting. We are still working on the outstanding issues report. We are making progress. I did have one of my auditors give me an update. It just takes a lot of time to go from the Excel spreadsheets that we were using to putting this information into Teammate. And if we make, one slight little error, it messes up the entire report. So we're just going through and validating what we carried over from the Excel spreadsheets into our software is correct. But we are still diligently working at getting this information transferred into Teammates. So that's what this sees once it's completed. We have a certain amount of CPE that we like to get during the year, and we were kind of banking on a couple of two-day conferences, one being the Auditor of State's Fraud Conference, and then there's another couple of big ones that we attend. Well, with this situation that has happened, we're not going to be obviously able to get our CPEs that way. So you'll see a lot of little 1 or 2 hour CPEs that'll be showing up on this report, whereas in the past it might have just been, Auditor of State's Fraud Conference or hours in small bites instead of one big chunk. There's really not anything new that's planned for the next 3 months, but once again, this could change at the drop of a dime depending on what's going on. Nothing new. We've already received the external auditor's report. It's been published. I did a brief update to the board on Tuesday, so there's nothing new going on here. And there's nothing new as far as the OIA staffing or budget. So, Mr. Ragland, that concludes the Office of Internal Audits reports. And I stopped sharing my screen.
Thank you, ma'am. Members of the committee, do you have any questions regarding prior to the meeting? Are there specific questions that you may have for Madam Auditor that she could answer at this time? Madam Auditor, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will go down to the section 3, which is an update from our Safety and Security Director, Mr. Ward, and that will be followed by an update from our recently hired CIO, Ms. Berner. So I will turn it over to Mr. Ward.
And thank you just for giving me the opportunity to come and speak with you this afternoon. So I'm going to give you a brief update on the progress that the district is making towards COOP, continuity of operation plans. And I will tell you, as you all know, we are living COOP each and every day now, and have been for some time. When we talk about COOP, continuity of operation plans, we generally plan for anywhere between 4 hours to 30 days of how we're going to conduct our operation, continue our operations, whether it's during an emergency situation or a long-term disruption. But you all know since March 16th, I believe, we have been operating under the COOP guidelines, meeting each and every day with our direct reports, with our leadership team, with the superintendent, and also with the Office of Internal Auditor, going over progress, where we are, what we're doing, what help, what supports do we need, how do we continue the operation of the district. So as you probably already know, COOP just simply documents how a division or department will perform their essential functions during an emergency or long-term disruption. And what I can tell you at this point, for us, the Columbus City Schools, COOP just didn't start on March 16th. We have been working on continuity of operation plans for almost a year in terms of updating plans. And we've had a COOP plan in place, but we wanted to make sure that our COOP plans were up to date and ready to go. However, no one could plan for this type of disruption that we're currently facing. What I will tell you, back in July, I did a presentation before the superintendent and the cabinet, and we talked about continuity of operation planning for the district. This training would include all administrators as well as all directors throughout the district, so that everyone was on the same page, everyone was up to date in terms of making sure that we had a succession plan, in terms of knowing what your alternative sites would be should we have a disruption within the district. But once again, this was not something we could foresee in terms of this type of disruption. So I was given the go-ahead and support from the superintendent and the cabinet. And as a result of the trainings that we conducted, I had an expert come in and work with the district to conduct training for all of us. And so we conducted trainings in August, September, October, and November. So they were 4-hour work sessions that we all conducted, going over various elements of the COOP plan, and also just wanted to make sure that directors and administrators would be prepared in the event of an emergency or a disaster. So the goal, of course, was just to simply update, make sure we're ready to go. But again, March 16th happened, and now not only are we living the COOP plan right now, but we're living the COOP plan not in the work site, in our homes. How do you do that? And not we're just not dealing with the situation. The world is dealing with this particular situation. So I'm just going to give you a few more updates in terms of where we are, what we're doing in terms of continuity of operation plans. I will tell you, I know for safety and security, along with every other department in the district, we have been meeting by WebEx, of course, or Zoom, or telephone, or electronic device. And each day we're learning together, we're working together, we're assisting one another to ensure that, number one, our kids' needs are still being met, of course. I mean, that's the operation of the district, is to ensure that education continues. And we continue to do that regardless of the hour, regardless of time of day. Meetings are taking place. The work is still being done. We're still learning from this. And as we are looking at our continuity plans, I've asked our directors and leaders throughout the district to continually update their plan, to make sure that, God forbid, something should happen to one of us, that there's someone who can step in the place if Chris Ward should get sick, and we can continue the process and continue the work of safety and security. So what we're still doing, we're still learning and still working to improve our continuity of operation plans. As you can imagine, when you're talking about, electronic learning, I know there was some mention earlier about hotspots, making sure that all of our kids have Chromebooks. And so these are the things that we continually work towards to make happen. As of today, we just received 1,000 cell phones in my office so that those devices can be distributed to those students who do not have Wi-Fi accessibility. And so, this was something that we couldn't plan for early on, but now that we're living with this disaster, now we have. These are the different types of processes we're putting together to make sure that our COOP plan is solid. As we continue to listen to the information that's coming from the news and the professionals and scientists, one of the things we do know that this will not be our last pandemic. And so that's why it's so important for each department to document the work that they are doing so that we are ready to go, when that next big incident should occur throughout the district. But I will tell you, as we continue to build on our COOP plans, continue to update our COOP plans, I'm still working with our COOP experts. And what we're looking to do is do some online training with those departments who might still be having some challenges with identifying those essential functions, the essential staff, the resources, putting together MOUs, working cross-functionally with other departments, other agencies that are out in the community. And I think, as you already know, there are a lot of agencies, businesses who are reaching for the same resources out in the community. And so for Columbus City Schools, I can tell, just being a part of many of these meetings, our staff, they have been doing a phenomenal job of working together, reaching out, talking to people in the community, talking to people in other states to get the resources that we need so that we can meet the needs of our students, but beyond our students, also our staff, as well as family members who might be affected by what's going on right now. I just recently had a meeting with the superintendent and the cabinet, just to reiterate the importance of the information that needs to go into the COOP plans. Once again, I've had a lot of support in reinforcing, and instructing those to make sure that COOP plans are up to date. I'm sure, our administrators and directors are probably tired of hearing about COOP, but again, it's important. The work that we're doing is important, and the work must continue. So I will also say, lastly, thanks to the internal auditor and her team, they reached out and said, Chris, how can we be of support? How can we work collectively to make sure that you have what you need, the resources, the information, so that the district can continue to do the work that we need to do. So I'm grateful and thankful, number one, to be a part of such a great team, brilliant minds, and those who are willing to give everything they have to make sure that the needs of the districts are being met.
Mr. Ward, thank you. You all have done an excellent job, not just during this calamity, but throughout the entire school year, keeping our students safe and keeping our buildings and grounds safe. We occupy quite a bit of space within the city. And understanding that, and I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to get your immediate feedback on. The first of which is regarding those buildings that we have throughout the city and how the decrease in activity with those buildings on a day-to-day basis impacts the way that you all secure them. And are additional resources needed need to increase our efforts in working with some of our outside governmental entities, i.e. Franklin County Sheriff's Department, Columbus Police Department, to ensure that the buildings remain safe, because we understand that lying dormant presents a large target for some of those that would seek to do harm to some of our buildings. And then secondly, how are we using our school resource officers throughout our COOP plan? Do they play a role in the trainings that we are conducting? Are we utilizing the resources that they can bring to bear to help us with continuity of operations? And then if you can answer those two, I thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start with your second question first. So we do, as we've always, worked well with the Columbus Police Department. As a matter of fact, I've been in contact with Bob Stewart, who is the Assistant Director, as you all know, of Public Safety, as well as been in contact with Chief Quinlan. He and I have been in contact with one another and just making sure that the services of the police department are meeting our needs. We have been using our school resource officers to assist us at the food sites, just to make sure that things are running smoothly. I'm happy to report at this time we have not had any incidents whatsoever. So they continue to be a part of our operation as we continue to try to serve the public. In terms of their roles in our COOP plan, again, the police department is still a resource for us. As we see the need for them to be a part of our operation, doing an event, a specific event, they are available to us. I will tell you, it was quite refreshing for Chief Quinlan just to reach out and say, "Hey, Chris, I want you all to know we are here. Please let me know if there's anything that you all need in addition to what we have already provided." So I can tell you that resource with the Columbus Police Department is still present, is still relevant, and very important for us to continue our work and our mission. In terms of our buildings not being occupied as much, I will tell you that we do provide security coverage 24/7. And so my department continue to monitor our buildings to ensure that our assets are being protected. We have eyes in all of our buildings, so we can see internally what's going on. Beyond that, there are times when our security staff will go and make checks, make rounds, just to make sure that everything is well. And I will tell you, as we continue to keep the buildings up and running, anytime our maintenance department is called out to a building, or if our custodial staff is in a building, food service, when they're in the building, if there's something that doesn't look right, they know that they can call safety and security. We do have our officers here on site at the base and also monitoring the buildings, again, 24/7. So we've done well, I will say, and we continue to work together, and that's what it's all about. Everybody working together to ensure the safety of our assets.
Thank you for that. And Madam Superintendent, I want to commend you for this, because this was one of the primary areas of focus when you joined Columbus City Schools. You immediately saw a need for us to increase our human capital within our safety and security department. And so you came on board, empowered us to bring on more safety and security officers. Little did we know that we would be in such dire need for those added, soldiers on the ground in this type of situation. And so I really do appreciate your foresight back then. Other members of the committee, do you have questions that are comments that you would like to make for Mr. Ward at this time?
Hi, Mr. Ward. Nice to see you. I guess a quick question about the cell phones. So are they supposed to function as hotspots, the cell phones you receive?
So I do know that the cell phones that was delivered to my office today, that plan is with the academic team. So they're going to assign the cell phones and the hotspots how they see fit.
Right.
Yes. So they would be able to give you more information in terms of what that's going to look like for our students.
And are you involved because you will be delivering them?
So our office is involved. In terms of what role we will play has yet to be determined.
Okay.
But I just simply put that out there so you know that as we look at our continuity of operation plans, we continue to build upon it. We continue to allocate resources to meet the needs of our students.
Well, and it just occurs to me, when we met, Jen and I went on the tour, we talked about our wish list was to do more community engagement and, more outreach with our families. And I'm thinking now, there might be some opportunity here to coordinate with engagement, and I don't know if you guys are doing that, or you probably are already, but just, opportunities because of the downtime leaves us free to maybe do some things we didn't have time to do before. So it would be nice to keep pursuing that in terms of process.
This is a new normal for all of us. And again, our staff were ready to go. I, of course, have been thankful for the additional 30 staff that we received this past school year. And however we can be used during this time, we're ready to go and available.
All right. Thank you.
How much do you think of what we're currently having to do with, under this pandemic and having to do things remotely will transition into the way of operation going to the future? And do we need to start gearing up towards funding that and looking at, that as something we have to consider going forward?
I would have to say so. I just started using the online platform with my security staff and really looking at the benefits of it. And so at one point, it was just done with the department leaders, if you will. But now I'm starting to push it down towards our security staff in terms of just meeting with them, scheduling weekly meetings with them. I think this is going to be the wave of the future. I mean, this is going to be part of our new normal. So I do think as we look at our budgets, we're going to have to plan for this. I don't see this going away. I think this will be part of the new normal.
And if I can interject with that, I think as we also, a great question, but I think as we learn more that we don't necessarily equate that to more people. And I think people are going to be working differently and more efficiently, and because we are still trying to figure out what schools are going to look like next year. So we have a reopening task force that I'm forming, and we're going to look at how are we going to open schools next year, and what does that look like operationally with our staffing, safe and security, and a lot of that is going to be guided by the governor and other entities that are going to put provisions possibly in place. So a great question. And we're going to think outside the box and making sure that our next steps do not cause additional cost to the district because we're in this pandemic. So we're working closely, looking at what other districts are doing, and making sure that, yes, we want our students to be safe, staff to be safe, but knowing that it should not and hopefully cost any district dollars that they didn't anticipate spending. But we have to look at how do we use our resources differently and more effectively, and use technology, as Mr. Ward has said, to make sure that we have the security we need and operating more effectively and efficiently moving forward.
And to follow up on what Dr. Dixon just said, in terms of the creatively and differently, so and maybe accomplishing multiple goals. So, for example, if I'm just making this up, and I don't know if it makes sense, but if it were that our safety and security officers were to deliver the hotspots, that's an opportunity for engagement. So there's some ways to be creative and to be thoughtful and mindful about accomplishing multiple goals at once, or being strategic in ways that I think, to Dr. Dix's point, will also help us not necessarily incur more expenses, but be more effective. And it kind of circles back to this committee in the sense that I think that our audit team should be part of the brainstorming about this, because they're uniquely situated to some extent to have a view, an organizational view and a systems view that might allow them to connect dots that we might not ordinarily connect, or a certain organization might not be thinking those terms, but they might be able to see the bigger picture just based on their job and their perspective. So I'm just adding that as a thought.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Ward or for Dr. Dixon, for that matter, from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Ward, for a very detailed report and for the work that you all and your staff continue to do during this pandemic. Madam Auditor.
Okay, thank you. Before I get to our CIO, I do want to add this will be the last report. Item number 4 with this, which is ethical compliance, has been postponed because during this time we have so many others meeting on different items. I just thought it'd be best to kind of free up their time and not put another meeting on someone's agenda where, you know, they're needed to be doing other work elsewhere throughout the organization. So even though there is a number 4 on your agenda, our report from our CIO will be the last one of the day. So, and I see Miss Bernie has cut on her video. Hello.
Hello, Internal Auditor Smith. Nice to see you again. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here and presenting. This is my first presentation to this committee. Well, Chris Ward has been a difficult act to follow. So, you know, he almost did his entire presentation without PowerPoint. I'm not that good. So if you're going to see some things that has been already presented in the board meeting. So I like to say I have something old, something new, something borrowed. I took a lot of the input and risk from my staff, and something blue. The entire presentation, the font is in blue. So there you go. Without much further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Are you all able to see the entire screen?
Yes.
All right. So I heard a lot of discussion again today about Chromebooks. So, you know, I wanted to touch briefly on that, you know, while our goal is to continue learning, and learning has not to stop. And that's why we embarked on making sure our students had devices to do their virtual learning from home. To Mr. O'Connor, and you know, we got, how are we going to track these devices? Because understand these devices, we had their input on, you know, how are we going to track these devices? What does the traceability look like? What does the accountability look like? So we involved them upfront in this process, and we devised a methodology where we were tracking this in our student Tuesday, and we just started our phase 2 of Chromebook Operation Chromebook distribution on Tuesday. So far, between Tuesday and today, had up to 14 people taking calls from families and 22 people returning calls if the families couldn't reach the 14 people on the phone and had to leave a voicemail. And we have reached out to the families, and we have made further appointments. We have added an entire day on Saturday so we can accommodate, you know, less essential employees by their employer. So we have added Saturday, the entire day of Saturday, to allow for those parents to also come. We have made some accommodations. Or they have a newborn, we are allowing the student to come with a signed permission from the parent, because we need a parent to sign the liability form and for the traceability, or another adult, as long as they have a written consent from the parent or guardian on record. So we are allowing a lot of families to get these devices. So we have also added another day on Monday because we had a high demand for appointments. So we want and review this plan as we move forward through the rest of this week to see, you know, if we need to do more to reach more families. And this was the chart. Again, this shows by grade level and the distribution numbers. And, you know, as you can see, it's kind of evenly distributed across grade level at this point. Sure.
I don't know if it is, does everybody else's screen, are you screen, or is there a part that's blocked out on the far right-hand side?
Partial blocked out.
I heard the same. I heard the same issue during the board meeting, and I don't know why, because I'm displaying on a full screen. Uh, is it better now?
It moved.
Yeah, I think everybody, there we go.
Yes, it's
Okay.
better now.
Okay, I think that now, but that's okay. That was a square. I moved it off the screen. So, moving on, that was about the Chromebooks distribution. I also want everybody to know we are making sure the full internet are at home through the Google management software. Today we pushed 2 extensions the students and teachers were requesting that will help their experience with Google Classroom better. So we are able to do that without compromising the security feature so we are not compromising the endpoint or having people download whatever they need. So when kids, even if kids download something they're not supposed to, it's not going to stay on their computer. So we're securing the endpoints in some fashion. As far as I will start with email security updates. I know there have been some recent incidents where some of you have been involved. We are sending continuous communications to our staff about phishing. Phishing, as the word suggests, is somebody's phishing your credentials, a different spelling, but they're always phishing for something, email address. And please don't click on these members, and some of them are, they have frequent flyer miles with us that continue to click on this, and they do it every time. And often they become victims of their identity being stolen, and then people using that to send emails across the district for other things, as well as if it has extensions like .exe, which is an executable, which typically there are some extensions that viruses get sent to you, block all that before they even reach your mailbox. If it's a bad IP address, like I said, some of you in this call, emails, again, another way of phishing. And these alerts and texts that to our technicians 24/7. So the mailboxes and logs are being monitored 24/7. So understand, I don't even come to you because we have circumvented them ahead of time. As far as the network goes, right, we have a multi-level user access and multi-factor authentication. So, just presenting one level of credentials is not enough. That's why sometimes you have to log in multiple times or enter your credentials multiple layer security to explain in very non-IT terms. I don't want to throw a lot of jargon or IT speak, geek speak at you. We say you have a fence, you have a door, you have an alarm. Think of that as multiple works, and that is one way we can make sure the hardware, the desktops, the laptops, the Chromebooks, when they're in our schools and in our network, they continue to stay patched, upgraded, and safe for our students and teachers to use. We use SolarWinds and Cisco Management as some of our tools for monitoring and alert. We are here to protect our schools, our students, and our staff from all these what we call bad actors out there. And the data center weekly, and patches to stated, so it's not like somebody has to look at them. We have a beta testing group, which typically within IT, we first send the patches to this group, make sure the patches are fine and there isn't any any causal effect from these patches. Then we send it to the whole district. That is for the endpoints, but servers, we automatically patch them. And patches to applications, there's a difference between patching a server at operating system level, manually monthly, because we may be in a different versions of those tests, and then we update them monthly. We also watch for I can only tell you every day we get attacked by bad actors, and thousands of people try to hack into our network. And you'll be glad to know we have thwarted monitoring it 24/7. There is no luck with it. It is intentional, and we're monitoring it, and we're thwarting all those attempts for bad actors to get into our networks and do harm to us or get into our data. This is a picture of how we track compliance. As you can see, these things are tracked weekly and monthly, and these reports are produced so we can share them with our Office of Internal Audit or our Auditor of State when they come to audit us, and we can also constantly monitor for our own purposes the compliance. Some other initiatives we were doing as we were distributing Chromebooks and as we are beginning to distribute hotspots. By the way, I forgot to mention, today we distributed around 200 hotspots remotely because we had planned and we had arranged for everybody to have WebEx, so we can have these continue to have these meetings and board meetings, and we set up the infrastructure almost immediately, know how to access them, and I'm happy to say 98% of our school buildings have boosted Wi-Fi now. And we heard anecdotally from several seniors that they're actually using, and we continue to have partnerships. Mr. Watt alluded to a delivery of cell phones. These are the hotspots, and we got delivery of 1,000 of them today from AT&T phones. We need to work with AT&T through that. But I will continue to keep everybody, Dr. Dixon and the cabinet, updated on progress on that. And we'll come up with a strategy based on data that shows us where the needing solutions. So I don't have a definite, this is how we are going to do it plan, but we will soon have it. Training our teachers continuously. We have trained 1,800 or more of our teachers already on how to use WebEx and how to use it safely, because we're hearing about a lot of video bombing incidents. So we are communicating, and we are providing training on how to use it safely, and we are in a speedy manner. The first 2 weeks of Chromebook distribution, typically we receive 500 calls. In our help desk, it went up to 1,500 calls a week, but it's now plateauing back to use these devices successfully, and learning is happening in the homes. What are the next steps from an IT risk perspective specifically? I'm working on putting together a long-term technology plan. When you're looking at technology plan long-term, I would look at it as two different items, related, not distinct. One is enterprise tech trade, and the other one is a school-based technology plan. How do we deliver curriculum, enable virtual learning or learning in the classroom through academic services and transformational leadership? We are going to work on both. And we are hiring for a cybersecurity expert next fiscal year. We currently have excellent staff, excellent tools, and like I said, we need a cybersecurity expert to provide that overarching, here's the NIST standards, here are the standards K-12 is supposed to follow. Somebody to provide that overarching oversight into the cybersecurity program. So we are hiring for one. And we will continue to improve upon our risk posture. We work very well. Kevin and I exchange emails almost every evening, and he is a very good partner. I look upon them as an extra district, and I'm happy to report we recently had we had one very low-level finding that we have already addressed. That's it. I can answer any questions at this point.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vierny, for that report. I'm just glad that you are a part of the team in doing such an excellent job. You really hit the ground running, and things are really, really working to the benefit of our young people.
Thank you.
The one question I do have is, how can this committee or members of the board help you in this process. Obviously, this was a very quick learning curve for you getting on board. And it's good to hear that you're working with Kevin in the Office of Internal Audit on a day-to-day basis. Are there things that you have identified as of yet where we can be of assistance to you?
So I've had great support from Dr. Dixon and Dr. Stanford and all my colleagues, and I felt great support from all of you, from even the previous board meeting where we presented this. So I would request for you to continue to support this, but as specific items come forward, I will reach out and ask for that support. As of now, we are trying to get those devices and hotspots in the hands of our students and families that need them the most, so learning can be successful and continue. And we thank you for the support for procuring those hotspot devices and everything. So yes, I will reach out as specific items come through, but yes, I would like to request the same level of support. I am so glad to be here. I feel like so fulfilled, and every day I'm humbled, and I feel so fulfilled at the same time with how much service that I can provide.
Good.
Madam Co-Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And I am thrilled that we have you as well. I guess I have a couple of thoughts that I think probably relate to how this committee and the members of the audit team might be helpful. And some of it is informed by my experiences with the district as a teacher. And so what we've done is terrific. What you've accomplished in this short period of time is nothing short of phenomenal and amazing. And it's, you've heard me say this before, we're shifting in a way that can really make a huge difference in terms of closing the equity gap. What I'm a little bit not concerned about, but what I want to hear about is where we're clearly not, we don't have devices in everyone's hands. We don't have internet, and I'd like to know the process. And maybe I don't even need to know the process, but I'd like to know that we're working on a process to figure out who's yet to receive, who we haven't heard from at all. And it's got to be a process. And this is why our committee, the audit staff is probably could be helpful with this. That involves Office of Engagement, maybe involves safety and security, certainly involves academic services, involves the using the teachers as the primary interface with who students and which families we're connecting with and which families we aren't. Like figuring that out, which must be the next step. It's not clearly, once we've kind of gotten through this initial phase, is going to be huge and require a lot of coordination. And I guess I would just like to see you supported and or vice versa, you supporting whoever is taking up that effort. But I want to make sure we keep our eye on that, and we are creative about trying to figure it out.
I would like to jump in on that. Just know that the team, that we are working together as one.
Sure.
And then as we figure these things out, if we need board support, the team knows that we have the support of the board. I think if one of the things the board can do just about this and any other items is that these are unprecedented times, and that we don't have everything figured out today, but we are working to make sure that these things are figured out. But we are working as one team. We have over 50,000 students that we are serving. So we are, 3 and 4 times larger than our neighbors. But we're coming together in unique ways that we haven't across the district and our departments. That's why I'm so glad we have the Department of Engagement that's working with parents, that have surveys trying to figure out what parents want. We have loaned out, and I think that's key. We've loaned out our Chromebooks So we were able to say we have Chromebooks for our families, so we didn't have to buy additional. We were able to come together with the process to loan those items out to our parents. And the board, your policies allowed us flexibility to go ahead and purchase hotspots without having them coming back for board approval, which meant a lag time. So I think there's a lot of support that you have provided us. Through some policies, there are some provisions that are there for emergency situations, just like with the hotspots. So thank you, the board for that. And then as we continue to look at data and hear from our principals, we're learning. For example, I had my principals cabinet meeting yesterday, and it's a group of 15 principals that we meet monthly with me to see what's happening and how we can, and they're the voice of all the principals and administrators in the district. And we learned yesterday that said, hey, we want to be able to get more Chromebooks out, and we as the principals want to deliver them to our families, because we have some family members that are essential workers in their jobs, and so the hours just don't work. So, so we have another layer of support from our team members, because we've said we don't want to cause any team member any harm, expose them to COVID-19 in any way. But if they want to say, hey, we can arrange with our families, we can drop it off at the front door, we can stay in our cars to make sure they fill the form out. That's the excitement and when you're talking about creativity and our administrators wanting to make sure that our students have those devices in their hands. And even Wandana's department, if a family member needs a Chromebook repaired, they make an appointment. Hey, they can stop, they can drop their Chromebook off and pick up another one while we're repairing that. So we have been working very close, reaching across the aisles of departments and kind of removing those barriers so that, as you stated, that our families and students are first, and while we're still keeping our team members and our families safe too. So thank you for highlighting that support. We definitely feel it. And there's some legislation that's out there that allows us to again, emergency situations. And then, as Carolyn stated earlier, we're brainstorming on some things this morning at a cabinet meeting. So it's we don't feel like we're in separate categories right now. I mean, separate corners.
Excellent.
IA versus finance versus my shop. I think more than ever, the three of us are coming together because we have to in a very different way that actually feels good as a leader. Just says, you know what, come together with the colleagues. Carolyn, what do you think about this? Stan, what do you think about this? And really brainstorming to make sure that we can make those things happen for our students and families.
That's really incredibly good news. And just to let's make sure we get some good video of the principals delivering those Chromebooks and we get it on our webpage.
Thank you. I'll send that to Dr. Chapman so we make sure that happens. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Dr. Dixon, I do have a question. Can families still call the 614-365-6471 number to get an appointment to obtain a Chromebook? Is that still the correct number? Is that still taking place right now?
Yes, Chair Ragland, it's taking place through tomorrow.
Okay.
So that we can fill appointments through next Monday.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. So once again, that number is 614-365-6471. Again, 614-365-6471. Let's get our kids learning. Let's make sure we're doing everything that we can to set those appointments so that we can streamline this process. Thank you so much again. Other questions from the committee?
Couple of questions. This is Ilya Vajan. As regards to the spam filtering, so does the district also have advanced threat protection from Microsoft, or is it just Exchange Online protection?
I think it's Exchange Online protection, but I can get back to you with the specifics on the advanced threat protection.
Okay, yeah, that's
I will
fine.
communicate through Ms. Smith then.
And then for the multi-factor authentication that the district uses, is that an actual? I don't need the specific or want to know the specific product, but just is it like an out-of-band, like a one-time code, or is it SMS, or kind of? I guess what level is it?
It is more, it is more built into the layers of security. We don't have Juniper. Sorry, not Juniper. We don't have phone factor authentication or any of those authentications built in yet. We're working toward that, but this is more like, you will be asked to authenticate yourself multiple times and different applications. Right now, we haven't built a federated single sign-on for that purpose because we haven't introduced the other traditional means of multi-factor authentication.
Okay. And then I promise the last question. As we looked at it on slides that displayed the compliance, health and compliance, are those numbers of actual, are those servers or some kind of other clients that we're talking about?
They're mostly servers, and they're patches and patch levels as well, because you're probably aware we get more than one patch a week for these servers, and especially now K-12 is attacked. So the number of patches increase as well. But yeah, mostly they're servers and patches.
Okay.
I already showed you a couple of screens. This is from SolarWinds, so there is more detail to that, yes.
Okay. And do you have similar report that you usually monitor for like other devices, like network devices and firewalls and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have an appliance device that monitors all our layer of security, and I get the report every week, and I go through it, and that's how I know how many actual attempts we are thwarting and keeping ourselves secure. And we also have Sophos, which is a outside vendor as well that is looking at some of our layers of security as well for us and monitoring it constantly. So we have like divide and conquer with that.
Yep. And lastly, great to virtually meet you. Sorry, maybe I should have started with this. And at any point, if you or Auditor Smith want to talk, I'm more than happy to help out.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If there are no further questions from the committee, Madam Auditor, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I would just say thank you, Varner, for the presentation. Likewise, I'm happy to, like Vajan, put you in contact with Nationwide's IT folks if it can be helpful to support. Is a position for the IT security officer posted yet?
Not yet. It's the next fiscal year position, and it was approved by the Financial and Appropriations Committee. It hasn't completely come for board approval yet, and once that happens, we will post it. It's for the next fiscal year.
Greg, we snatched her from you.
Yes. But I don't know that she knows all the folks. Maybe we know, so we'll see. But I'm sure we could get Todd Lukens and Dave Daniels to give you a hand if we need to.
I've worked with both of them. I was the strategist, so I've worked with all of them. Yes, but thank you, though. I would love an introduction.
Well, it may be helpful because we get folks looking for roles all the time. So there may be somebody that if we just don't have the capacity to bring somebody on, might be great for the district.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so back to me. Okay, great. There's one more thing. I received a really great suggestion to give a really brief overview of the Office of Internal Audit and also the work of this committee. So the Office of Internal Audit is an independent office. The chief, who's myself, I report directly to the Board of Education. I provide them with advice and recommendations on the district's compliance with various rules and regulations, and also any types of risk that, if not mitigated, could hamper the district from achieving its goals and objectives. So all the reports that come out of this department are primarily geared towards those type of things. If this control is not put in place, it could hamper the delivery of XYZ, which could also impede the success of our students' academic career here at the district. So, and then a part of it is also compliance. You know, if we don't do A, B, and C, we will be out of compliance with this rule or regulation from our funder, which could jeopardize our funding in some type of capacity. So that's probably a really not quite detailed enough description of what we do, but I just want to give a really high level of what, you know, the office does. And as far as this committee is made up, this committee is a board committee. So anyone who is a board policy nerd can go out and see that this is a designated standing committee of the Board of Education. This committee is comprised of 4 board members. One of those board members will serve as the chair. Another one will serve as the vice chair. And it's comprised of, I said that wrong, 3 board members, one that serves as the chair and one as the vice chair. And then 4 community members who will have expertise in either accounting, auditing, IT. Sometimes we even had legal expertise that serve on this committee. So if you put all that experience together, they provide the board with advice as far as the work of the internal auditor and also the external auditors. So all of our work comes before this committee, gets vetted. Sometimes it will go straight to the board from a meeting. Sometimes they will say, you know, make these adjustments and bring it back, and then it will full board. Same with the external auditors. All of their reports come before this committee. Before they start their work, they meet with this committee and go over what they're going to do and how they are going to do it. Excuse me. So that's just a very hopefully high level explanation of the work of the Office of Internal Audit and the great collaboration and work of this committee to not just the board, but also to the Office of Internal Audit. So with that, I have nothing more to add.
Thank you so much, Madam Auditor, for that overview and for the work that you and your team have done. Some very good information has been shared today with this committee, and some very good information was shared with the board at the board meeting on Tuesday. As we close out, I do want to offer President Adair an opportunity to give some final thoughts, if you would have any, President Adair.
Thank you, Chair Ragland. I don't really have anything big, just, you know, again, thanking the members of this committee. Your advice is very valuable to our processes, and thank you for volunteering to sit. And, you know, again, to the staff of the Internal Auditor's Office, you are valuable members of our team, and I'm very excited to hear about the collaboration between our 3 direct reports and the continued efforts to move our district forward together. So thank you to the committee, thank you, Madam Auditor, and thank you to Superintendent and Treasurer for being good public service stewards.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Co-Chair, would you have any final thoughts to add before we close out?
Yes, I do. I have to say thank you, and to all the same people that President Adair just mentioned. We're grateful and humbled by your willingness to serve, and grateful for your wisdom. Also, I want to say thank you to Auditor Smith and her team. Your hard work over the years has positioned us to be able to now think even more creatively and more broadly about how we look at risk, and starting to consider, you know, how we not only look at risk, how comfortable we can be with some risks in order to focus on the real risk, which is that our children aren't learning. And so we're looking forward to continue to use that lens as we decide what audits to prioritize and where to allocate our resources. And I think that we're already seeing signs of that, which is really exciting in your work with safety and security and with our information team. So I think I am very excited about where we're heading. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you to members of the committee for your time today. I would like to announce that the next meeting of the Audit and Accountability Committee, hopefully it will be in person, will be June 25th at 3:30 p.m. We will alert you if we should have to utilize this virtual format again in the future. You'll be alerted with that as we notice the meeting publicly. But thanks again for all of your work today, members of the committee. And with that, I think there's no further business to conduct. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting of the Audit and Accountability Committee meeting, please respond by saying aye.
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 Thank you all and have a great evening.
Yes.
Everybody stay safe. Take care.
Yes,
Yep,
and
stay
thank
safe.
you.
Stay safe.
Stay safe, everybody.
All
Good to see
right.
you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.